Hello and welcome to our webinar, 6 Signs You Need a New Website. Whether you found us at standingpartnership.com, on YouTube, or some other way, thank you for your time today.
We're really looking forward to diving into this conversation with you. In fact, talking about websites is one of our favorite conversations. A lot of people have a sense they need a new website, but they're having trouble pulling the trigger because it's a big investment, and in today's business world, money and time are in short supply for everyone.
Before we dive in, let me introduce ourselves. I'm Nick Sargent. I'm Director of Digital Strategy here at Standing Partnership, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Ashlyn Brewer.
Nick and I have both been here for a little over 6 years, and we're really passionate about helping companies create websites that produce real business results.
So why are you tuned in today? I mean, other than the fact that we're so entertaining. There's usually a couple reasons you're considering a new website. The look and feel of your website just feels out of date and everyone knows it. Sometimes it's just you've got change happening in your organization, whether it's a merger, new leaders, new products, maybe just the old way of doing business isn't working for you anymore. Some sort of challenge that has put increased scrutiny on you and your website.
It could be something very technical. Maybe your website is hard-coded or has an outdated content management system, and that means you're not able to edit the site and it no longer matches the look, feel, and voice of your company's brand.
And the reason we get the most, honestly, is just a lot of internal questions. People who are asking, when are we going to get a new site? Today, your website is the first impression you give prospects about your business. If the front door is broken, if there's shag carpeting that hasn't been cleaned in 30 years, you're giving the wrong impression to people, and you don't want that.
Yep, Google has done great research that most of the buyer's journey has shifted online, and that's true across every sort of business. That means your website plays an important role in making your sales process work and driving results for your business.
So here's what you should come away with after watching this video. By the time it ends, we want you to be able to determine if you do need a new website. We'll also give you some facts, some stats, and suggestions to make the case to your company that it's time to invest in a new website. So let's dive right in. What's the first sign that you need a new website? You love your design, but you hate your metrics.
We've talked a little bit about bad design in the past, and yes, that is one of the most visible symptoms of a website that needs to be updated. But Nick and I have talked to a lot of people recently who have the exact opposite problem. They've updated their website in pretty recent order. It looks pretty great. It probably matches their current branding and follows best practices. But even if it looks good, it may not be doing much for their business. It may have been updated more with the design in mind than with the strategy behind it.
So here are a few signs that you know this is your problem. You're not doing analytics reports. Maybe you don't have analytics on your site at all. You don't have access to your analytics, so you can't tell if the site is performing, even if you like the way it looks. And this is what we'll jump into first, there's just lots of bots on your site, and we're not talking about those cool new Facebook ones everyone's talking about. Here's an example of a report that we look at when someone tells us that they really like their design, but they're not loving the results. It's a basic report that you can find in analytics that breaks down the length of visitor stays. Each of the lengths are bunched into different groups, and as you can see on this particular site, the vast majority of visitors are staying less than 10 seconds. Time on site and time on page are nice, but if you just look at the average, you can be fooled. What this told us is there were bots who were coming to the site, who were paying the site, who were doing a variety of different things, but they weren't real visitors and they weren't having an impact on business. Just looking at the time of site, which was about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, just looking at time on page in most cases, and even looking at the number of visitors was completely fooling them. They wanted more from their visitors, and the way it turned out, they just weren't getting enough real visitors, period.
Another way to dig in if you feel like you don't love your website results is to take a step back and consider if you're measuring the right things. So too many company website dashboards we see just don't line up all the way to business goals. This is a pretty standard Google Analytics dashboard, and at one point this was pretty impressive. There was a time before this data was available. It's great that we have it, but there is a problem if you don't go deeper than this, because when marketing is under the microscope and you really need to show your value, senior leaders look at data like this and they say, well, who cares? Great, we're getting more traffic, but who are these people and how does that connect to what we're trying to do?
As Ashlyn said, updating a website takes a lot of resources, and that can be time, money, or people power. Unless you can prove that it's a worthwhile investment, unless you can show the return to your senior leaders, they're just not going to be as likely to make those investments.
And if your website isn't structured in a way to get the metrics, to gather the metrics that matter to your business, it's probably time to consider a new site. Can your website collect the data you need to make the connection that goes deeper than what you see on this screen? You might want to know, did they visit a specific section about a new product that we just launched? Are the people who are coming to our website from our target audiences? Having that kind of data, having lead data, having all of the stuff that is sort of the next generation of marketing metrics makes a really big difference in giving the who cares info to your senior team.
The next sign you might need a new website: your target audience is everyone. But anyone can use the site. We want to get as much traffic as we possibly can. We hear that all the time. But the question is it the right traffic? You have people who are extremely important to achieving your most important business goals. That's not everyone in the world. That's not as many visitors as possible. That's a very specific audience.
Good content is targeted content, and if you're writing a page of your site and you're trying to reach supplier partners, current customers, potential employees, all with the same language, well, the fact is that all of those groups care about your business for very different reasons, and you have to say different things. You have different messages that resonate with them. They may even use different words and terms to talk about your services and your company. If you imagine a page of your website trying to appeal to all of them, it's likely to just do a poor job of appealing to any of them.
And then finally, maybe you're already using personas, those sort of fictional representations of your target visitor. We'll dive into that in a minute. But even then, if you have personas, are you treating them all the same and expecting them to use each page of your website in the same way? If you are, you might still have this targeting all audience problem. If you aren't familiar with marketing personas, here's an example of one that we've created for Standing Partnership. In fact, we're guessing it's probably you. We made this webinar and a lot of the content you may have consumed already for Motivated Mary. And even if you're more of a motivated Mark, listening on your computer or your device right now, we know you're the kind of person who wants to make change in an organization. We've built our content to attract you and help equip you to make the case for the things that you want to do within your own organization. We know Marketing Marys that are marketing coordinators, PR managers, even CEOs of their companies. It's not the title that makes them a great client. It's all of those other factors that you see here. Knowing that helps us create a website that's really meaningful to our deal target, and we're hoping it's what the website's doing for you.
This also just changes the type of feedback we solicit when we're trying to improve our own website or our content. One of the problems people have when they work on a project like this is that they take everybody's opinion equally and then they try to produce something that everyone will love equally. But the fact is that just doesn't work. We've prioritized our marketing or our Motivated Mary persona, and when we get feedback from people internally or externally, we can push back by saying, but is that what Mary would think?
So how do you get a website that really delivers for your target audience or for your persona? You've got to dive deep into those audiences and really understand who those people are and create those personas that are going to really help you achieve your goal. And then you've got to start to ask yourself, what's the buyer's journey? Where are they along in the process when they're first encountering a problem that they need to solve? When they're identifying a solution, and then when they're picking what that solution is, whether it's a partner or a product or a service. You got to make sure you pick the right keyword, the right content, and the right call to action in each of those stages. On each of those pieces of content, whether it's your static page on your website, a blog post, your video, whatever it may be.
The next sign that you might need a new website is that you have to pick up your phone to update your site. That can mean calling IT, calling an external developer, or basically anybody that's outside of your core team. We've seen this a few times and have encountered this with our own website just a few years ago. It wasn't set up with an easy CMS, and it meant we had to go external to make any change to our site.
Some of the other ways to know that this is your problem, you might not have a blog or a posting function available to you, so just really no way to update the site the way you want to update it. You may have had to create a new blog or something else on a completely new URL. Maybe you have a blog that's hosted on WordPress instead of your own URL. Or maybe just have this totally unwieldy ecosystem of microsites. We've seen it as a way to sort of control the different things that are going on. You can create new content and just post them on new domains to manage it, but then it just becomes unmanageable long term.
We totally understand the impulse. If IT controls your website and it's out of date and you don't like it, when you have a huge important initiative come up, the inclination is to create a microsite that you can completely control the message, and you can make sure at least that part is really good. And maybe for one initiative that really works, but sometimes it also backfires. The truth is that this sort of propagation of microsites spawns a really complicated system that your prospects don't understand, your internal audience doesn't understand, and it makes your web presence feel very disjointed and inconsistent. If you're building microsites to overcome this website challenge, you probably need a new website.
So marketers today need a lot more control of their website. They need complete control, really. And here's some stats that prove the reason why. From HubSpot, we know that 78% of companies that blog daily have acquired a customer through their blog. That's inbound marketing at its most succinct right there. And it really highlights the importance of being able to create new content and post it on a regular basis without anyone's interference. The other side of this is that we know from the corporate executive board's research that 57% of the buyer's journey is completed before a customer ever makes contact with a supplier. That means that they're going out and they're doing the research about what their problem is, what their possible solution is, before they ever let you know that they might need help or that they're considering a solution. So you've got to be there with good content, up-to-date content, modern content to encounter them throughout that first part of the buyer's journey.
It also means that if your organization has a lot of conversations where you're wondering, why weren't we included in that RFP process? Or we heard that this big potential prospect was pitching this business, why weren't we invited to the table? Well, it might be because they looked at your website, you didn't look like a fit, and you were ruled out from that stage. You need to make sure that your website rules you in for your target audience and not out.
Fixing this is sort of a chicken and the egg situation. How do you prove the value of control if you don't have control? The tools that you see here are some ways that you can start to make that case. It gives you a little bit of control, but it's not as good as having a website that you can fully control yourself. Platforms like HubSpot or even WordPress allow you to put a blog on a subdomain of your existing site and start to create content on a more consistent basis. You can show how you're driving more relevant traffic, how you're converting leads on your site. Tools like SharpSpring and Marketo, they're very similar to HubSpot. They bring all of those marketing automation tools to the table as well. And then, of course, there's Unbounce and Lead Pages. Those are simply landing page tools, but even those can give you a little bit of added opportunity. You can link from blog posts or other parts on your site with the help of the developers to drive people to capture some leads. You can also do some tests with digital advertising, whether it's on social or pay-per-click, and get some leads that way.
We do say this is a short-term fix. These help you prove the value of what you can gather when you have some control over the website. But if you only use this and you never circle back to making the website better, it is just as unwieldy and confusing as a system of microsites can be.
The fourth sign you might need a new website, it's not optimized for mobile. We all know the importance of mobile today. In fact, you're probably even watching this on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android phone, whatever it may be. But there are still lots of websites out there that aren't optimized for mobile. And if you're watching this at our launch, ours is included. In September of 2016, we're working on a new website, and one of the main reasons is to get a better mobile experience. It's not good enough to have a responsive website. In the case of our website, that's part of the problem. It's built on a responsive platform, but the mobile experience just still isn't very good. We still get questions of why does the site look like this on my phone, and that's going to change going forward. If you have a very text-focused mobile site, it can create a really bad experience, and that can show up in a variety of ways, including a high bounce rate from mobile, particularly on blog posts. If you notice that there, that has a lot to do with the fact that they may be shared on social, and people go to them and have a bad experience and bounce out right there. And then the last thing to look for is small click targets on some really critical pages. If people are experiencing your content on their phone, they've got to be able to click with their fingers. If they can't, it gets really frustrated and they leave. One of the best ways to go about checking the mobile friendliness of your site is to use Google's free tool, which we have up on the screen here. As an example, we use the IRS since they already have a challenged reputation and we don't really need to worry about them trying to be a client of ours. In this case, this is a really bad example and a really good example. It's a bad example because it's not mobile friendly, and it's a good example because it shows all of the problems that can happen when you have a poor mobile experience.
So if you came across this IRS website, you would probably decide, I'm going to do whatever I'm trying to do on this website later when I'm at a desktop. And the IRS can get away with that because we do not have a choice about whether or not to interact with the IRS. If you're on this website, it's for a reason, and you can't go to IRS's competitor to file your tax return or whatever it may be. But if you're a B2B business and your target audience is looking for information right then, they might bounce and never come back. They're not going to necessarily do you the service of waiting till they're at the desktop so that they can access your website in its full glory. The trend here is pretty clear that even if mobile is less important for you today, it's just going to become more and more important. It's important for you to think about, when is this trigger point and what do I need to be doing now so that I'm ready for mobile?
If you don't believe it about our experience discussion, if you don't believe it because it frustrates users, believe it because of Google. They're penalizing sites in their mobile search results if they're not mobile friendly right now. And I have no doubt that it's going to be across the board before too long.
The fifth sign you might need a new website is that you have no calls to action. You might have great content, but if you're not illustrating with people what the next step to take is, you're losing an opportunity to collect information and drive them to action.
So how might you know this is the issue? You might not understand what a call to action is. You might have a low percentage of your visitors that are doing anything on your site that really means something to your business. Or most of your leads might be coming through the Contact Us page, which is an indication that you maybe don't have enough ways for people to get in touch with you on your website.
You may not have a lot of pages per visitor because they're getting lost once they get 1 or 2 pages deep in your site. You could see a high bounce rate. People access something on the page, there's no clear next step, so they leave right away. Or a high exit rate on pages where you really want people to be taking action. And you might also just be seeing low traffic on dedicated landing pages, which means on places where you really need people to be headed, there's not enough ways to drive people to them.
The fact is, we think of calls to action as being these call outs to get lead information, to go to a landing page. But calls to action work in a lot of different ways. If you aren't guiding your visitor to the next logical step when they hit whatever page on your website, you're missing a big opportunity.
So we like to say that each page of your website should have a call to action, and that call to action should be mapped to the buyer's journey. And what we mean by that is, if you have a page that's really about creating awareness and it's helping illustrate and bring someone to your organization that hasn't heard of you before, you don't necessarily want to jump them all the way down to a decision stage call to action like contact a sales rep.
This is really one of those signs that is for somebody who starts to get past the first few. They like their design, they really like their initial metrics. They might have a very mobile friendly site, but then they dig a little bit deeper and there's just something that's not quite right. There's a lot of pages on the site that aren't performing the way that they want to. This is usually the place to look if that's the sort of thing that you're experiencing.
And if you notice and you're looking at these 3 stages and you feel like, forget calls to action, I don't even have pages of my website that map to each of these stages, the buyer's journey, that's just yet another sign that you may need a new website.
The final sign that you might need a new website, your business has changed, but your website hasn't.
Sometimes companies change a lot faster than their websites do. This could be because they never consolidated their websites after a merger or acquisition. They had a major strategy change but didn't update their website to reflect it. Could be a lack of integration of brand sites or new companies. Sometimes it's that the product and services listed on your website don't match what your sales team is saying. And there's nothing worse than having your salesperson sell something in or try to sell something in, and when the prospect goes to validate that on your website, there's nothing there for them. Another thing that happens is that your sitemap becomes a tangled web of confusion for users. And what we mean by that is you're updating your website with every change, but it's not done in a coherent way, so the site becomes really hard to navigate.
Here's an example of what that final point might look like. This is a case where we audited a site and there was just so many pages and so many different ways to get to each of the sections. It was just impossible to navigate. It was a very highly siloed organization, and they were being very responsive, adding pages throughout the site as people asked for them. But it made the whole overall navigation very difficult. Might reflect some of the internal structure of the organization, but it certainly didn't mirror the way customers experience them or the way they wanted to experience them. If you're worried that your site looks like this, drawing out the sitemap and taking a look at how it actually navigates is a good way to start making that case of saying, hey, we need to take a different approach. We need to take a look at a new website. That's the 6 signs that you need a new website. We really hope that you found this video informative and that you can take the next step to do what you need to do to get that website project done. If you're convinced that you need a new website, we hope that you'll reach out and contact either Ashlyn or me at Standing Partnership. One of the best ways that we found to move a website project forward is to go through our comprehensive website audit process. It's third-party validation that there are aspects of your site that need improvement. And it doesn't just take a look at it from your website only perspective. We're comparing and contrasting against your competitors' websites, looking at the opportunities and risks that exist for you out in the digital space.
Thank you again for joining us today. Please get in contact soon if you have any questions, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar again soon. Thanks.